Assalamu alaikum students. Today we start chapter 4 quadratic equation. A quadratic equation in X is an equation that can be written in the form of ax square plus bx plus c is equal to 0, where a, b and c are any real numbers. Another name of our quadratic equation in X is second degree polynomial because its maximum power is 2. These are some quadratic equations and we write their coefficient. In first equation, x square minus 7x plus 10 is equal to 0. Coefficient of x square is 1. E is equal to 1. Coefficient of x is minus 7 and c is equal to 10. In second equation, a is equal to 6, b is equal to 1 and c is equal to minus 15. Coefficient of x square is equal to a, coefficient of x is equal to b and constant value is equal to c. In fourth equation, 3x square minus x is equal to 0, a is equal to 3, b is equal to minus 1 and c is equal to 0. And in last, x square coefficient is 1, coefficient x is missing, it is 0 and constant is minus 4 because we write in the standard form. In left hand side is equal to minus 4. Solution of quadratic equations. There are three basic techniques for solving quadratic equation: factorization, completing square, and by applying quadratic formula. By factorization, it involves factoring the polynomial. It makes use of the fact that ab is equal to 0. It means a is 0 or b is equal to 0. For example, if we have factors x minus 2, x minus 4, these product is equal to 0 and we write x minus 2 either 0 or x minus 4 equal to 0. Next, in this question example, we factorize it. We make factor of number 10 and factor of 10 are two factors. 10 ones are 10 and 10 twos are, and 2 fives are 10. And in these two factors, which factor we add or subtract make minus 7, and these are 5 and 2. If we write minus 5 and minus 2, we multiply these numbers, it gives plus 10, and when we add these numbers minus 2 and minus 5, this gives minus 7. So this is the possible factorization of this equation. We write x minus 2 and x minus 5 and then equal to 0, and we find the values of x. And these values are all also called roots of the equation. Next is completing square, extracting square roots. The quadratic polynomial are not exactly factorable. For example, it is difficult to factorization. In such a case, the factorization and hence the solution of the quadratic equation can be found by method of completing square and exacting square roots. We solve this question by completing square. In completing square, we add a square and we divide here coefficient of x, which is equal to 4. We divide it by 2, which gives 2, and we add square of 2 to both sides. Always we divide coefficient of x by 2, and which now it gives 2. We add square of 2 to both sides, In left hand side, always there are complete square of x and the number we add to whole square and the sign which is with the x, and in right hand side we have the value 441 and we square root of both values. In left hand side square is missing and in right hand side square root of 441 which is equal to 21, and then we write for plus and minus, and this is the solution of this question. Again, there are some quadratic polynomial which are not factorable at all. Integral coefficient. In such a case, we can always find the solution of quadratic equation applying a formula known as quadratic formula. This formula is applicable for every quadratic equation. Standard form of quadratic equation is: step 1, we divide it by a. When we complete it by completing square, always coefficient of x square is 1, so we divide it by a. Now step 2, we take constant term to right side and then we divide coefficient of x by 2 and its square, we add its square to both sides. In left hand side we complete the square and in the right side we take LCM and then we square root of both sides. In left hand side square is dropped by square root and in right side numerator is under the square root and denominator 4a square becomes 2a. And this is the formula for quadratic equation. In general, we apply in the next question. Here we have a quadratic equation. We solve it by quadratic formula. Now here coefficient of x square which is equal to a is equal to 6. Coefficient of x is equal to 1 equal to b and constant term is minus 15. And we put these values in quadratic formula. Four 6 are 24. 24 multiplied by minus 15, minus minus plus, and we add 1. It gives 361. Square root of 361 is equal to 19. And we solve it by plus and minus, and we have the solution. Again we have a quadratic equation and we solve it by the quadratic formula. Here a is equal to 8, b is equal to minus 14 and c is equal to minus 15. We put these values in quadratic formula and solve these values to get the answer. Now this is exercise to 4.1. we have a question: 3x square 4x plus 1. Now to factorize, we multiply a by c. We have here a is equal to 3 and c is equal to 1. If we multiply a by c, it gives 3. Now factor of 3 which makes 4 are 3 and 1. And then we common x from 3x from first two values and 1 from second two values. In place of 4x, we write 3x plus x, because when we multiply 3 and 1 it gives 3 and we add them it gives 4. This is its factorization, and then we common x plus 1, and we write both these values equal to 0 and get the answer. Now here we have question x square minus x is equal to 2. First we write in standard form x square minus x minus 2, and factor of 2, which gives 1, or minus 2 plus 1. When we multiply minus 2 by plus 1, it gives minus 2, and when we add minus 2 plus 1, it gives minus 1. Now we common x from first two values and 1 from second two values. Always these two brackets have same values, x minus 2 and x minus 2. We common x minus 2, and there is x plus 1. Now in this question we solve it by completing square. We have coefficient of x is equal to 2. We always divide coefficient of x by 2. It gives 1. Now we add 1 square to both sides. Now we in left hand side it complete the square x and the value which we add and sign of b, x minus 1 whole square, and on right hand side it is equal to 900. We square root of both values. Now we have 31 and minus 29, the answer. Now this is the question. We solve it by factorization. First of all, we arrange this question like a over ax minus 1 is equal to, and we take minus b with it, and we move b over bx minus 1 to right hand side with a, and it is very important to arrange these values. Then we LCM of both pairs ax minus 1, LCM of first pair, and bx minus 1, the LCM of second. Then we move these values on same side. If we see that first numerator of both values are same, now here we take minus common from the second fraction, which make the change in their signs, and it gives same values, and we common numerator, and this is the factorization, and we make both of values equal to 0. And then solve to find the values of x. Here again we have a completing square question, but there is a value of b is equal to 3. When we divide it by 2, it remains 3 over 2. We add 3 over 2 square to both sides. In left hand side we have x minus 3 over 2 का square. We write there minus because coefficient of b is negative. And in right side we solve and then square root. and we solve it for plus and minus to get the answer. And in this question we have coefficient of xk is equal to 2. In completing square we always make it 1. When we solve quadratic equation by completing square, coefficient of x square is always 1. To make it 1, we divide it by 2, and coefficient of x is 6. We divide it by 2, it gives 3. We add 3 square to both sides. In left hand side we have x plus 3 whole square, and in right hand side 64 square root of both sides, and we have the values of x. Now in this question, first we multiply these values and arrange to form a quadratic equation. In left hand side, x multiplied by x, x square, x multiplied by 7, 7x, and in right hand side we multiply the pair of values and we move these values to right hand side. Now it gives x square minus 4 is equal to 0, and we apply the difference formula, a square minus b square, a minus b, a plus b is equal to 0. Now we have fraction, 3 fractions, 2 on left hand side, 1 on right hand side. We take LCM of these fractions and then simplify, and now cross multiply these values, and at the end we have the quadratic equation 2x square plus x minus 3. Now we multiply a by c, 2 by 3 it gives 6, and its factor are 3 and 2. If we have sign of b is plus, when we factorize we always write the sign with the greater value. We have a sign of b is plus, we write it with the greater value. We have here greater value is 3. Now in this question we solve it by quadratic formula. First we multiply all these pairs, then we arrange these pairs. And put these values in quadratic formula. And solve these. Here we have a value of a plus b plus c whole square. Square of 3 values, a square plus b square plus c square plus 2ab plus 2bc plus 2ca. Square of these value and then common 4 from the square root and write 2 outside the square root. Okay student, try to solve each question. If you have problem, underline your problem and send it to me. Thank you. Jazakallah.